Okay, today I'm going to talk about the influence of microorganisms on Earth's environment. In my earlier lecture, we talked about its impact on how does it associated with the whole environmental kind of situation, which is controlled by the microorganisms. So the same thing we are continuing today on more of like influence of these microorganisms, how these microorganisms are influencing the Earth's environment, and how Earth environment is dependent on these microorganisms to get this work done. Well, the microscopic majority rules our world is overwhelming number of microorganisms are present in on the face of the earth or in the environment. Approximately 10 to the power 30 bacteria and archaea inhabited earth, outnumbering all other organisms combined by the astronomical margin. So this is the massive the collection of the biomass, right? Despite their microscopic size, their total biomass exceeds that all animal, demonstrating their planetary dominance. Even in the human system, the trillions of human cells are present in like in a standard body, but I think the biomass or the microbiome on the human, like gut microbiome from head to toe, it always outnumber than the total number of cells. So sometimes it's like a joke. People call it as we are more of prokaryotes than eukaryotes. The universal presence. Now, from fertile soil to ocean depth, they are present all across the environmental condition. Now, from Antarctica ice to scorching desert sands, microbes thrive everywhere. So it is omnipresent. So everywhere the microorganisms are present and in huge number. We call it as the engine of Earth's life support system. And not only the life support system for the earth or for the environment, but it is also important for the human system or for the animal system to survive. Now, the elemental cycle of champions, we call it as the bugs or microorganisms. So the microbes orchestrate the carbon, nitrogen and phosphorus cycle that sustain all life on the planet. So as we discussed in earlier lecture, that these microorganisms are involved in the completing the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, and in order to sustain these living system on the earth, maybe plant and maybe animals or human as well. There are certain oxygen producers. So photosynthetic cyanobacteria generate approximately 50% of Earth's life-giving oxygen. So this is the mass of level of oxygens are produced by these microorganisms through their metabolic processes. Now, if you go to the agriculture foundation, many microorganisms are involved in sustenance of the agriculture crop. Nitrogen fixing bacteria convert the atmospheric nitrogen into the plant usable form of the nitrogen in the form of nitrites and nitrates and ammonia through their oxidation and reduction process, which are required for the food safety and food security. Now, if you look this plot or this kind of a figure, how it interconnected with the system, how these microorganisms of different categories are interconnected to the whole Earth system. So we call it microbial association or link between the Earth sphere. The whole Earth sphere is well connected, well interacted with the microbial world. So if you talk about the lithosphere, the microbial decomposition and the minerals weathering mobilize nutrients. In case of hydrosphere, like when you talk about the hydrosphere of the earth layer, the microbes drive nutrients, cycling and organic matters break down in water molecules. So these are all functions and significance of these microorganisms on the earth, how they are associated with the earth. If you talk about the atmosphere, the microbial gas exchange like methane, carbon dioxide, sulfide gas, carbon monoxide gases, oxygen, they all are produced in atmosphere through these microorganisms. Similarly, if you talk about the whole biosphere, the microbes support food webs and plant health via symbiosis. So many microorganisms, as we discussed in earlier lectures, that how these microorganisms are associated in commensal and in symbiotic relationship between the microorganisms. All right. So basically all these microorganisms are well connected with the earth system, and earth system is basically functional only because of these microorganisms. So if you remove the whole microbial world from the earth will be paralyzed and will be stopped functioning. The nature's climate warriors, we call it, because the climate change and the atmospheric weathers and then how the weather change take place, all these things controlled by the microbial world. For example, in atmospheric concentration of the various gases is controlled by the microorganisms. So if there's a imbalance in the microbial world which are connected to the earth, it will definitely impact on the atmosphere and ultimately affect on the weather and climate changes. It could affect the temperature, it could affect the humidity, and it could affect the pressure on the earth for the survival, and that also related and associated with the many other lives on the earth. So say, for example, if we talk about the soil carbon storage, the soil microbes convert atmospheric carbon dioxide into the stable organic matter. And this cycle goes on. This organic matter again oxidized and reduced to form again the other compounds which are utilized by many plants and many plants as a manure as well as animals for their nutrients. It creates vast underground carbon reservoirs that helps to regulate the global climate. Now, if there's a change in this reservoir, maybe depletion in the reservoir of these microorganisms, it could have effect on the climate change. The mycorrhizal partnership, that is the fungi from different sources and different species of fungi, they form symbiotic relationship between the plant, enhancing growth while dramatically increasing soil carbon storage capacity. Similarly, organic matter stabilization is all controlled by the microorganisms. So acetinobacteria or actinobacteria species, which are protobacteria species, create a stable soil compounds now that lock away the carbon for decay and reduce the atmospheric carbon dioxide. So finally, the atmospheric gases, especially carbon dioxide, and in return as oxygen too, besides other gases like methane and carbon monoxide, all being maintained on the surface of the earth, in the atmosphere, biosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere, all being governed by the microorganisms, and these microorganisms play a very significant role in controlling this. So the Greenhouse Gas Balancing Act. Now the Greenhouse Balancing Act is very important for the earth ecosystem to maintain the balance of these microbial world with that of the earth living and non-living entities. Non-living, I mean, says like a weather, temperature, pressure, the physical parameters. If you talk about the methane, generates methanogenic archaea in waterlands, and rice paddies produce methane, a greenhouse gas 25 times more than CO2. So this is all produced by the methanogenic archaea or archaeobacteria, class of the archaeobacteria. The methane consumers, on the other side, natural mitigation we call it. The methanotrophic bacteria, so methogenic bacteria, they produce the methane, and methanotrophic bacteria, they consume the methane gas, serving as a natural emission control system in various ecosystems. Under the microbial gas productions, if you talk about the climate amplifiers, so climate amplifiers are rising temperatures, accelerate microbial metabolism, potentially increasing the greenhouse gas emission from soil and wetlands. The dynamic balances between these climate amplifier and the natural mitigation is the climate change disrupt this delicate microbial balance and creating unpredictable feedback loop in greenhouse gas cycle. So this whole cycle is controlled by the microorganisms. Any imbalance in these microbial world will ultimately affect the mitigation of these gases or this natural product which are being produced by the microbial world. Now, look at the microbial food web and ecosystem stability. Again, this is important to understand that how the food web work, which basically support the microbial world on the face of the earth. So if you look the foundation of life, like microbial ecosystem under the stress. Why it is under the stress? It is a stress because the control of the microbial world, their survival, their maintenance, in order to association in terms of like association with that of the earth ecosystem is very, very important. Now, if you look the microbial food web from the bedrock of the large ecosystems, now cycling nutrients and energy essential for all life forms. The temperature disruption, so rising the global temperature accelerate the microbial metabolism, and that in turn affect in other way, and destabilizing the establishing the food web relationship between various ecological niches and their lives there, and in terms of like energy flow. So ultimately the disruption of these will in turn affect the whole ecosystem or that particular niches where the microbes are being associated with the atmosphere or the environmental condition. The nutrient pollution is another important parameters where we talk about the agricultural runoff that triggers the explosive algal blooms, creating oxygen depleted oxygen depleted deep zones, and that devastate the aquatic microbial communities. All right. So the nutrient pollution is again one important parameter which are being controlled by these like algal blooms and which create the oxygen depleted dead zones. Now these dead zones are basically important for some of the other saprophytic microorganisms which can help to survive there and recycle the process of various nutrients which are produced. Cascading effects is called the combined environmental stressors. These stressors can amplify or offset the microbial impact, creating an unpredictable ecosystem response. Sometimes these responses increase through this cascade process of these amplifying or offset the microbes. So in other words, we can call it as like a regulatory mechanism of these cascade effects where these microbes play an important role in calculating this. Now, the masters of adaptations, the microbes in extreme environmental conditions. So the ancient survivors are the extreme habitats or rapid evolution. These are the three categories under this. We call ancient survivors means like microbes have weathered Earth's most dramatic changes for over 3 billion years and developing unparalleled resilience. Now this resilience is basically again important for sustainability of the ecosystem or sustainability of the microbial world, which recycle many gaseous nutrients, energy compounds for the utilization of many life in the atmosphere or on the earth. The extreme habitats are called as from deep sea hydrothermal vent to Antarctic ice sheets. The microbes thrive where no other lives can survive. And this is again by adaptation process where a lot of physiological changes and metabolic changes taking place in these microbial world or microorganisms, which basically provide these, which allow these microorganisms or facilitate these microorganisms in order to sustain or present in these extreme harsh conditions. Basically, most of these microorganisms belong to the kingdom Archaea or the group Archaebacteria. Rapid evolution is something which is related to the quick reproduction and the compact genome enable swift adaptation to change environmental condition, where there's a role of mutations and role of changes and at every point of time taking place because of the mutations, and that mutation is through various mechanisms as we discuss in some other lectures about the horizontal gene transfer, recombination, and various deletion or insertion of certain sequences or certain islands which are present, which are basically carrying certain gene responsible for this adaptation process. So we call it rapid evolution. So basically the microbial world is evolved due to the mutations and changes taking place. Several variants are being formed within the species and beyond the species, and so that it can maintain the environmental conditions well. So studying about the extremophile provide the crucial insight for the developing climate resilience strategies, breakthrough in biotechnologies. So now, in order to understand the climate resilience or sustainability of the climate or maintenance of the global warming, climate change, weather, everything is controlled and maintained by, sustained by, these microorganisms. So to understand about these extremophile is very important to look into the genes, and that's one of the area where the new industries can focus on to come up with the new technologies to understand them and to use and implement them for maintenance of the environmental condition for the lives. Now the microbes are called as environmental guardians. Why we called as a microbes as environmental guardian? Because they are basically one who guard, who protect the microbe, who protect the environment. Now if these microbes are not present, or if these microbes do not have any linked and association with the environmental condition or environmental setting, then environment may be lost, and we cannot talk about the these environmental resilience or the climate sustainability. The nature's cleanup crew we call a bioremediation champion. So these bacteria, these microbial world or microorganisms are also champion in bioremediation. So on the one side, they are also providing the nutrients for the food to survive, to maintain the atmospheric climate, to maintain the atmospheric conditions, atmospheric setting, by producing several gases, and by producing several consuming several gas, producing several organic materials, and they're recycling all these matter into different form time to time. Besides that, they are also play a very significant role in bioremediation. Now, what does the bioremediation? Bioremediation is basically providing to clean the environment, right, and to clean the whole nature. And this is a lot of pollutions in the environment, air pollution, water pollution, right, soil pollution, and these pollutions are caused by several pollutants. So to identify several pollutants, what are the different pollutants and how these pollutants are being consumed, are being utilized, are being degraded by the microbial world in order to clean them out. So pollution degradations like specialized microbes break down heavy metals. So heavy metal is another pollutant. So there are certain microorganisms which can break down these heavy metals, which are coming from the various industries, various resources as a effluent out from the source, as a source, as an outcome, as a product, byproduct, and they pollute the whole environment. So heavy metals can be degraded, can be consumed. Then pesticides is another big issue where a lot of pesticides are being thrown on, on the fields. So the soil pollution that goes to again recycle into the environment through various means. Similarly, oil spill, which are many times in the ocean, during the carrying the oil containers, the oil spills may take place, and these oil spills, which is organic in nature, which can make a layer and biofilms on the surface of the ocean water, so that can also be degraded by several microorganisms. Transforming toxic compounds, so several toxic compounds can also be transformed into through certain reaction into the harmless substances. So the pollutant degradation is one of the major tasks of these microorganisms, which are called as a bioremediation through the action of the microorganisms using these pollutants as a substrate. Similarly, water pollution, a lot of water is polluted through various hardcore minerals. Then we can have several microbial worlds, microorganisms, toxins, and various pesticides. They all mix in the water through certain means, maybe soil irrigations and all. Now the water purification can be attained through these microbial communities. So microbial communities naturally detoxify the contaminated water, restoring the aquatic ecosystem for the aquatic aquatic life like fishes and various other aquatic animals, for the sustainability of these animals, and they also provide the health and biodiversity. So water purification is again with the help of microorganisms can be possible. Industrial solution, again various engineered bacteria, like you can modify the bacteria through genetic engineering and recombinant DNA technology, which successfully remediate the industrial sites contaminants are. They can also use these contaminants as a substrate to degrade with dyes, solvents and heavy metals. Before these metals or before these dyes and solvents come in some water bodies. Soil restoration is again through several fertility of the soils can be maintained. So various beneficial microbes like like a nitrogenous compound can be utilized by the microbes, nitrogen fixing microorganisms. These nitrogen fixing nitrosomonas, nitrobacters, they can utilize these atmospheric nitrogen and make it utilized for the plants to survive, and they provide the fertility for the growth of the plant, for the good yield of the plant, and they're supporting the sustainability of this agriculture production. Microbial biofuels production cycle. Now the waste biomass. The waste biomass is something which is has to be utilized, has to be degraded, has to be recycled into something useful material for energy production of the bacteria, energy production for the various plant or for some animals. So agriculture residues like organic waste serve as a sustainable feedback, and this can this can be utilized by these bacteria and can be converted into again useful material. Then specialized microorganisms convert the biomass into the biofuels through controlled fermentation. So you can have a very controlled fermentation that provide you this, and the carbon reduction. Now the net reduction is greenhouse gas emission compared to conventional energy sources. Then we have a clean energy where we have bioethanol, biodiesel, methane, and replace the fossil fuel. So fossil fuel, which is again there's a risk of the threat of loss of these fossil fuels over a period of time. So that can be saved. They can be the reservoirs can be preserved, and so bioethanols can be prepared, biodiesels can be prepared. So for that you need to have the engineered microorganisms, some modified microorganisms, or you can have some strain identified from the sources where they form the diesels and biofuels. So that is another area where one can look into and produce these, make use of these microorganisms to produce. Now the challenges and risk factors in order to get all these things is we call it is a double-edged microbial sword. Just like a double-edged sword, you have it can kill others, it can also affect our own. Similarly, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of risk factors involved in that. So first let's talk about what are the emerging threats. Now if you look into the pathogen proliferation, so this proliferation of pathogen may also be disastrous, and like warming temperatures favor harmful microbes and threatening human, animals and plant healthy globe. So if you look into the whole global proliferation or the spread of these microbes, it might be harmful to some extent at some point of time. So this is one of the threat quite possible, and it is not known that are these microbes are giving a provision for some harmful microorganisms to grow, because they have a mutual understanding of these microbes. Maybe in the next talk we'll discuss about the quorum sensing mechanism and how this can sense to the other bacteria to grow and to survive. Now the biodiversity loss is another thing. If you have focus on one kind of a microorganisms to grow and does not allow the others to grow, so like only the good bacteria will start growing and the harmful bacteria start suppressing. And this is how it weakens the ecosystem resilience and adaptive capacity. Now, as far as the challenges are concerned, it is unpredictable responses of the bacteria which are not clear even before you implement it into for some good reason. The complex microbial interaction make the climate projection increasingly difficult to model accurately. So this is again a challenge. I mean, it's very difficult to get it make a complex microbial world or complex microbial setting where you can have it interact to make it more climate oriented projection, like control of temperature or some other climate weather control. So this is a big challenge. It's not so easy task. Research imperatives, as far as research imperatives are concerned, there's urgent need for interdisciplinary studies to understand and to manage the microbial climate impact. How these microbes put a climate, because it is not very clear now. We can just have some clues, some guess that yes, the microorganisms, they play some significant role on the climate control, on the climate change, but it's not very clearly understood how it. So it is clear it is, but what is the mode of action and what is the mechanism, so that having understanding these mechanism and action impacting on the climate change, one can enhance these microorganisms accordingly and can produce some better quality of microorganisms to produce better impact. So with this, I close this chapter, and we'll talk some in the next talk. We'll talk about some more role of microorganisms in resilience and sustainability in the face of the earth or in the environment. Thank you very much.